taking control of your life is one of the biggest things that I push, right? That there's opportunity in front of us and you've got to take advantage of it, and no one else is coming for you. You might find someone like your pastor who came along to help guide you or teach you. You might find something like that, this event that you had when dude passed and you realize this wasn't your thing, but you've got to take control of what's in front of you. And while you can still have a balanced life, sometimes you've got to go unbalanced for a short period of time. I mean, that moment, when you're 18 to 30, that's where it's done, man. That's where you learn your stuff. That's where you get your experience. That's where you meet people. That's where you say, okay, let's go to Norway, right? Lean into that with me for a minute. Like we're talking, let's say we got a couple kids in front of us. They're trying to figure out what they want to do. Oh man, I need a balanced life. Oh, I game a few hours a night. Oh, I want to hang out with my girlfriend. Oh, I don't want to be a corporate wage slave. Like, how do they take control of their life, man?
They're going to have to prioritize, number one. It depends, because if you're dealing with people from a certain economic background, they got a whole different level of experiences that people from poverty, people from those kind of backgrounds will have. So there's really not a one size fits all kind of answer. But I guess across the board, if you're talking about...
Let's lean into those kids for a minute, Arun, because I've talked a lot to my students who come from the disadvantaged backgrounds that they actually have an advantage because they don't have anything to go back to. They don't have anything that's going to be there for them. They realize they're the only thing that's going to help them get out. Let's speak for a minute to those kids that have everything.
Right. Now, are you talking about
with nothing if they don't work?
Are you talking about disadvantage from outside America or within America?
Well, we're talking North America for a minute. We'll shift to Europe and
yeah, because in North America, like I said, I've been very blessed. I got to thank my mother for this, for the fact that I got a U.S. passport, but people don't realize, and it's coming. And I don't mean to turn this into a doomer thing now, but people don't realize how good they've got it in this country. And whoever you met from within America, even if you look south of the border, Mexico, I've been to Mexico. You and I have been to Mexico. I've been to Mexico for work and for pleasure. But Mexico is just going to basically be the new Detroit. And what's going to happen after that, the cost, you're never going to win in terms of, when you talk about Keynesian economics and price elasticity of demand, you're never going to win. So with that, having that knowledge, which again, a lot of kids don't have, because who knows what they're teaching them in high school. At least I had some solid founding, at least in that regards. And I think statistics is a very powerful subject, man. And that's one thing, we can talk about that later, but I'm really glad I took about 3 years of that, in addition to all the other stuff we had to take. Linear algebra, fine, multi-variable, that doesn't matter, but statistics to me is extremely valuable as a subject, and it doesn't get a lot of love, but now it is. And statistics will tell you the percentages. It's hard coded. It's right there. It's factual. And when you're dealing with the fact that now in America, college rates are so much, everything's exorbitant, as opposed to what, compared to the rest of the world, it's still pretty damn good. You got running water. You got this infrastructure. You got the lights are on. We've been able to have a lag-free internet connection here. It's just the little things that people, they seem to take it for granted, and I guess that's part of evolution. But at some point, when you're talking to these kids who, I didn't have gaming. I think a lot, hopefully everyone else, when I grew up without a TV for first, we joke about it. You, me, and some other guys that we know, we joked about it, but I didn't have that kind of corruption. And I just can't imagine now. I didn't have a game system. I didn't know. We did the real thing out there. But I guess it's very difficult now because there's so many things competing for your child's or your young adult's attention span. And I think, going back to your last question, one of the most important things we could tell them is be mindful of what you consume. Really be mindful of what you consume. I went from wasting time watching college football games or whatever, to just watching the scores. I'd say, I don't care. I'm not gaining anything. I'll just see the scores just, again, to do small talk for my business endeavors or whatever. But watch a 3-hour game you do that when you're in there. But after that, there's no point. Just simple stuff like that. And then now imagine doing that for every facet of your life. What kind of music are you listening to? What kind of dialogue? What are you consuming in X or whatever it's called, TikTok and IG? And then you see now it's a blessing and a curse, Z, because you see how the world is and how stuff's falling apart. And that should maybe light a fire in their underbelly. Hey, I got to get my stuff together and figure out a pathway in order to, if I am coming from a disadvantaged background, what has not worked? And what should I do that's the opposite of that? At some point, you got to trigger it. But here, there's enough safety nets. And I mean, that in the loosest regard because the safety nets in Europe are way much more because
Sure.
it's Europe. But there's still enough safety nets here where, yeah, but now that's starting to be prevalent. I went to Philly for a meeting the other weekend, and I've never seen that many homeless people. Like, they look like the Walking Dead. So now when that comes and you visualize it, maybe that will jumpstart something for them to be like, okay, look, I can't just sit in the corner and weep. I got to move my butt and figure out a way to keep the chains moving. And
I think the big part of that, and the thing I'm pushing a lot of people on, is if everybody is in the spot that you're currently in, and if you're that young buck or just coming out of school, you're spending time on social media, you're spending time on these other things, you're not real sure what you want to do in your career. The bar is so low to
right.
be different and stand out,
Mhm.
then the opportunity is now massive because you really don't have to do a lot to get much better. Switch 1 hour of gaming for listening to a YouTube training on how to run the machine you're working on the next day. Would be easy to get ahead, right?
You would think, but again, it's about, like you said, there's somebody sold them this. I don't know what's the right allegory or the right metaphor to characterize, but somebody told them, and like you said, deconstructing that and deprogramming that. MJ refers this to a lot, but a lot of people may not know who MJ is, but that stuff won't fly anymore. But you and I, maybe we figured this out. It's not in this period of time. The ones that really made it and succeeded in American history, they knew this. Whether you're Carnegie, whether you're Henry Ford, whether you're anyone, Edison, whoever you want to take your pick, they didn't waste time doing it. Obviously, it's much more challenging now because there's just so much more distractions. And I think there's a lot more seclusiveness. There's a lot more people with these electronic devices. They lack emotional intelligence. They lack people skills. Kids they don't know who to believe. There's a lot of misinformation out there. And statistics, genuinely, I believe this. Statistics and statistical inferences, knowing what's in front of you is the best predictor of how to make a business decision,
Sure.
which is why data analytics and data science is really booming now. It's because the data is there. What does it mean? And then how can it help you make a decision? There's no other mathematical subconcept that really does this in a better way than statistics. But how many kids are gonna do it? Because, and like you said before with your son, I can't imagine and then they see all these, influencers and whatnot making money or doing whatever. And it's one of the battles I tell my daughters, listen, this is not you. That will come and go. I think that kind of money is like the new drug money. Really bothered a lot of disadvantage and in my community. So it's just that ain't it. You got to figure out a way to really lay a foundation, working tools. What are you gonna do? This easy stuff, it's not gonna fly. But that, like you said, you alluded to a good point a couple of 20 minutes ago. What do you got to do? You got to slog it out hard. You got to really slog it out hard because you know what? This kind of slogging hard is still paradise to what our forefathers and what our ancestors had to go through.
Yeah,
And
really
and
good
they
point.
built stuff to last, and we can't build stuff to last anymore. Come